Welcome to another episode of the Perry Homes podcast. We have, I was going to say a treat. I got to quit saying treat because it's like every time I'm like, we have a real treat.
They're all treats.
Yeah, it's true. We really have a remarkable guest with us today. Again, it's Steve Peterson here on the President of Perry Homes, and I've got Trevor Taylor with me. He's the Director of Marketing. And this is really a unique opportunity because I have a fun relationship with Jeff, who was the president of Perry Homes for 12 years.
Almost 15 years.
Almost 15 years, right? And so I took over for Jeff. So Jeff and I had a real fun transition, and Trevor is Jeff's son. So we've got some real fun dynamics here, and it's just been a really great place to work so far. But we're super excited to have Jeff here. He has, for the last decade and a half, he has really set the tone and the culture at Perry Homes, so we're kind of interested to dive into that. Jeff, but just give us a little bit of maybe your personal life, right? Before we're going to talk all about Perry Homes and your effect on it for 30 years, but how about just Jeff Taylor? What makes Jeff Taylor tick?
Oh boy, I love sports. Number one is my family, though. My family and my faith. That's where I spend most of my time, and I've appreciated being at Perry Homes because I was able to put in a lot of hours, but also had the balance of life to be able to spend time with family and spend time in faith that I love, and that gave a balance so that work was beneficial and positive.
Love it, so great. What are you love sports? What are some of the sports that you like?
Football and baseball the best.
Yeah.
I love baseball the best, but I could never hit the ball very well, so I just didn't go very far in baseball.
So did you play like in high school? Were you?
I got cut from the high school team.
Come on now.
But I played.
Are you making that up?
No, so I stuck with football.
What position did you play in football?
Receiver and defensive back.
Oh.
I loved receiver.
Jeff, this is why we get a lot. I was deceiver.
Deceiver?
Wow. I was the deceiver.
I tried to deceive him with the patterns, but I wasn't fast enough.
I was receiver and cornerback. So we played exactly the same position. So
It worked out well for me because I played quarterback. So he was my receiver growing up. He'd run and I'd just stand there and throw.
You played quarterback?
I did.
I didn't know that.
He coached me all growing up. So
I knew we had some coaching. Matter of fact, let's remember to talk about coaching, because I feel like Jeff, a lot of what you've done at Perry Homes, right, was business, but kind of in a coaching type of way, I think is how I watched you. Anyway, so let's jump right into it. Can you give us just a little bit of your background and 36 years?
Just over 36 years.
Perry Homes?
Yes.
Kind of give us how it started and how you met Bill Perry and
Sure.
kind of up to the time of you starting as division president. Kind of review that.
Okay. I met Bill Perry. He was my mission president in Hawaii.
So great.
And my family moved back and forth between Arizona and Missouri. And so they moved again while I was on my mission, and I went home to a different part of Missouri, to the Kansas City area, and we had not lived there before. And I got a job with the home builder there, custom home builder, and worked for 2 summers, would come out to school at BYU, but it was going really well. All I was doing was clean up work, go for work.
So you're kind of a labor, like Merlin was kind of
labor, and then they had me start building retaining walls, timber retaining walls.
Oh, okay.
That was actually, I enjoyed that. Hard work, but I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
And then they had me start sitting in their homes. I didn't have a real estate license, but he said I could sit in there and give on some of their inventory homes and give information to people. I could not give prices, and that actually went pretty well. So when I left at the end of my second summer with them to come out to BYU, he said, I'm building a retirement community. I'd like you to come back, get your real estate license, and sell for me, market for me, and I'll pay for your school. And I was struggling to get through school, and financially it was really difficult. And I loved Missouri, but I also loved BYU, so I wasn't quite sure what to do. And I went back to school that year, and Bill Perry returned from being the mission president, and I had dinner with him and told him what I was contemplating, that I had to make a decision by December of that. This was the fall. I had to let them know by December.
Gotcha.
And when I told him what I was considering, he said, well, I told you a long time ago, I'd love for you to work for us. why don't you come to work for us? So that's what I did. So I finished that school year, got my real estate license, and
And you were probably 22.
I was 23.
Maybe
I just
23,
turned
okay.
23 and I sold part-time, and I use that term loosely because I don't like sales and I wasn't very good at it. In fact, I had 1.5 sales. I had to share one sale with another agent that whole first 6 months that I sold. And so I cleaned basements, mowed lawns, did a lot of labor work. So I had some hourly wages coming in, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and then did the same thing. I did that for 3 years, 3 seasons. During the school year, I was a custodian down at BYU, so I had a job on campus there as well. And when I graduated, I thought I was going to go into teaching and coaching. I majored in English, and I did seminary student teaching and felt bored in the classroom. I could not stay in the same place all day. I was really disappointed because I love teaching,
You wanted to, yeah.
but I knew that is not going to work. So Bill kept saying, "Why don't you just stay here?" So I did.
Bill keeps going, hey, I got this home
I'm
building
here. There's an
company.
opportunity. So I stayed and sold as I graduated. I married Stacy, and we started a family. And I sold part time, and then worked into management. Did the marketing. We didn't do a lot of marketing. It's nice to have Trevor who really knows how to market.
Right.
They just figured, I guess, because I was an English major, I could do marketing, and so I did a little bit of that and a little bit of everything, and then after several years it was about 4 years, was made a division leader, our West division leader, and with that I would buy ground, take it through the approvals with the municipalities.
You were involved with some really key pieces.
Yeah, we
like with Westgate. Were you
Yeah.
involved in the Westgate
Yes,
piece up in
yes.
Kaysville, which is a really key piece for us, right?
lots of different properties over the years
Yeah.
that we were. It was much easier and quicker then to be able to
Yeah, it was a whole-
purchase a piece of
whole
ground,
different deal, yeah.
and I remember the first one was in West Jordan. We bought it. I took it in for entitlement, and within 4 months we were starting homes. It was that quick to be
Now
able
it's
to do
what,
that. Now it's years.
18
Now it's
months,
years.
maybe 2 years.
2 years if we're lucky.
For that same process.
2 years. So it's a lot more complicated and more time consuming. But that's what I did, and then they had me move up. At one point, we moved up to Davis County. I drove up for several years and created a division there, and really got an idea of what it was like to run the company by creating that division. And I missed out on a piece of ground up there. It's still, to me, every time I drive by there, it was the best large neighborhood subdivision. It was in Kaysville, and it was brought to us, and I passed on it because I thought it was too expensive. I just didn't understand the market. So about 6 months later, I realized what a mistake that was, and I said, we need to move up there. I need to live in that market so I can understand it
Gotcha.
and get to know it. And it was a great move for our family. We loved where we lived in South Jordan, but it was a great change for our family as well. We still have wonderful friends in South Jordan, but for us, work and everything that we did, it was just a wonderful experience, and it was challenging with work, and I learned a lot through that experience.
Great, Jeff. So super great background. I love it because before you took over as president, man, you had experience in sales and in construction and in marketing and in land acquisition, right? You kind of saw the whole different
Saw all of it.
sides of that.
The one area that I didn't was the financing side, because as a company, they were already well established, and we didn't take out loans for land or houses. I don't have any experience in that area, and I'm glad I didn't have to, because we were self-funded.
Got
We used
some.
our own funds. We had to be very careful, conservative growth. Had to make smart decisions with that, but we didn't borrow. But everything else in the industry, I was able to learn how the industry runs, and I've enjoyed that.
Gotcha. I think Trevor's got a question for you.
Yeah, we've talked a lot with many people that have come on our podcast about the culture of Perry Homes, and we have a personal connection, me being your son, and we've gone through some things in the last few years that have really shown me and us and our family the culture of Perry Homes. And you mentioned marrying Stacy and starting a family, and just a few years ago, Stacy passed away. My mom, your wife, and as hard as that was for our family, can you tell us a little bit about how Perry Homes handled that and the culture around that and how that was dealt with? Because to me, being part of the family, it was a huge blessing. That I'm gonna get emotional. I'm sorry, I'm a crier. I get it from him. But
all three of us will cry.
but being at Perry Homes, we were allowed to grieve my mom, your wife, and take some time with our family. Can you talk a little bit about that culture?
Absolutely. That's something that I mentioned earlier. The family and faith were the most important things to me, and Bill made that clear in the beginning. One of the things that when I first started full time and as a division leader, and I could see that we were not the top builder in the state, and I kept going to Bill and saying, we need to be the top builder. We need to get more going. We need to be doing more permits than anyone else. And he always cautioned me, and I was a little bit of a pain with that. I was so assertive with it. And he said, there's a lifestyle. I want you to be able to work. We don't live to work. We work to live. And that's really our philosophy. I want you to be able to have time at home, time with your family, time with faith or community or school, whatever it is, because you'll be more well balanced. And it took me a few years to learn that, but I learned it quickly over time. And anytime I've interviewed someone to come onto our team, I've expressed that to them, that it's not lip service. Your family, if you're well balanced, it means a lot.
Because a lot of companies will say that, right? But
Very true.
How do they implement that?
Very
Which is
true.
kind of what
And
you're getting
and
at.
we
Yeah,
saw that.
question. Yeah.
And Stacy's cancer was I'll get emotional. It was a shock to all of us. And as that happened immediately, by that time Bill Sr. had retired and Bill Jr. was the CEO. And they were wonderful. They said, our youngest daughter was 12 at the time Stacy was diagnosed, and you need to be home. You need to be home. I was also serving in a heavy assignment with church responsibilities, and I was able to be released from that, and I appreciated that so that I could be home and spend time with Stacy. They came and set an office up at our home so I could do whatever I could at home. They took a lot of the responsibilities that were so timely critical. They took those from me, and to the credit of so many people in the company, people just stepped up and gave us the time to be able to be at home and spend time together. And at one point I even went to Bill and I said, look, understand if you don't want to pay me like you've been paying me. He said, we're not going to do that. You've worked so hard for many years, and it wasn't lip service. It was be at home. And then it was only 6 months later that Stacy passed away, and then it was again, we talked and we met and we said, what do you need to do to be at home with my youngest daughter, with my other children? Let's make this work. And so that culture it's alive and well, and it requires, and I would tell people this as we interviewed for hire, it requires someone who's trustworthy and is going to put in the time and get things done. And maybe there is some family event that takes some time away, but at other times there's a lot of long days and long hours, and finding that balance requires a discipline that keeps the company strong so that culture can remain. And it's been here since I started, and it's still strong at Perry Homes. And I made sure that anyone we hired understood that. We want you to use your vacation days. We want people well balanced, because you do better at work when you do that. Another part of the culture that goes along with that a little bit is that we're not going to chase after every new opportunity or every new idea or product. We're slow to make changes. We will make changes, but we're going to vet those changes. We're going to check them out. We're going to make sure that we're just not jumping from place to place and not getting somewhere. It's slow, conservative growth and changes. That frustrates some people. So I would be very open with people in interviews that if you want to be on the cutting edge, we're not the group. But we will make changes. We want your input, it took me many years to be able to have the trust to say, hey, let's try this. And people would say, okay, let's go do that. It's very comfortable for me. It's not for everyone, but as a company culture, those items are strong, and I believe that's what's led to success over the years.
I agree. Well, thank you, Jeff. That's Trevor, is a real thoughtful question, I think, and I know both of these men well, and I think for most people that are going to be watching the podcast, you probably know Jeff or know Trevor. But for those that don't, you can just get a sense of how we love Jeff when we still love you, Jeff. But
Thanks.
but he was such a fixture here for 36 years, and you can just see his humbleness and earnestness. And look, Jeff doesn't roll over, so don't get me wrong. Jeff's as hard nosed and clear thinking as anyone in the business, but that tender side and that vulnerable side, I appreciate you both sharing that part of your story. Hey, Jeff, this question is going to be a little bit selfish because it will help me, but I'm really interested in your answer. Let's say if you could go back, not to the very beginning of your career, but when you were first handed the reins as the president. If you could go back to that person 15 years ago, knowing what you know, what would you tell that guy 15 years ago?
I have actually thought about that as I retired. One thing that I know I would tell myself is to be a little bit more assertive. You have a wonderful team around you. We have great thinking together as a group, and we would need to continue that, but I would say don't be afraid to be a little more assertive.
In what way? It's a real great answer. Unpack that a little bit. Assertive in what ways?
Decisions made, those still need to be made as a group. That's one of the strengths of being conservative growth and slow to make changes that you know are going to be successful. But a little more assertive in looking at new product, new ideas.
Gotcha.
Towards the end of my career, I spent quite a bit of time bringing in product that we just hadn't built before, we hadn't done. And I would tell myself, be a little more assertive
Gotcha.
on product and finding new ideas and ways to create things. Still vet them, but be a little more assertive. I would also tell that individual something I already knew at that time was I knew I had a great team around me. I don't think I know I didn't realize how great and how strong the team was around me. And I'd say rely on them more. Allow them. It seems a little bit like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think there's a time and a place to really lean on others, and there's also a time and a place to be a little bit more assertive.
Yeah.
I would push on both of those things to be more sensitive to the right times.
Gotcha. And thank you. That so for me is taking over, right? And it's I've always felt really kind of humbled, and to be honest, Jeff, a little intimidated to take over, right, in the legacy that you started. And
Well,
so that's really good advice for me to think, because you look at Brandon and Tyson and Brady, right? We really have some great people to be a little more collaborative, maybe, in some of that. That's really
I appreciate that.
Really helpful.
I appreciate that, and I think it's important to note that prior to me being the president, Ken Dyer was the president of Perry Homes, and Bill Sr. was heavily involved, and that group, Dan and Dean, many people that helped establish Perry Homes, had set a tone, and so the teamwork was there, and I was able to just build from what they put together, and I respect what they did. Couldn't have done what we had done without them in the beginning.
Gotcha. You had another one, Trevor?
I live in Harmony Place up in Layton, and that was a subdivision that you were over as a division leader. And we've talked about it quite a bit. You've talked about it with Steve. I know you have mentioned it. And when you retired, we gave you a plat map of it, had everybody sign.
So great. I love that.
Can you tell us why that subdivision was special to you? Besides your son living in it, of course.
Besides me.
But besides me, can you tell us why that subdivision was special?
It's really because my other son lives
Yeah.
there too.
Okay. You
I
have
knew- I knew
that
that was
conversation. I love it.
I love Harmony Place. I love our product. I love the neighborhoods that we put together. Lots of reasons why I love Harmony Place. We actually took that over from two friends of mine, great friends. They were involved with two other developers, and they started in 2004, 2005. Well, in 2005 and 2006, and in 2000, end of 2007, 2008, everything went
that was
became
really
very
awful
difficult,
times, yeah.
and they were in financial trouble. So we took over their portion of it, and I worked with the other two developers, and it was set up to be small lots. They had already sold a portion of property to the Davis School District for an elementary school, and then they were going to do some really large, expensive lots. So great neighborhood where you could have all different price ranges. With the change in the market, we said we can only take this over if we can change those really large, expensive lots to smaller, more affordable lots. Still going to be larger than what was in some of the other areas, so we still have a very good mix.
Yeah.
But we had to go through a difficult zoning battle. It was tough.
Oh,
that was
with
it.
the city.
With the city. I left one meeting, one guy screaming, following me out to my car, swearing at me, and as finally someone stepped in between to stop him so I could get to my car, and he was a resident there in Layton, and he screamed at me, "How would you like this development being in your backyard?" Well, there's a field next to the back of our home. And I walked back. I was just wanting to get out there, but I was so intrigued by that question. I went back and I said, I would love this kind of a neighborhood to be in the field right next to me, because I know it will increase my property values. And he didn't say anything, he just walked away. And that's how I feel about Harmony Place. You go there and there is all kinds of demographics. Young families with lots of children, families with older children, several families, no children, a lot of active adults that live there. It's a demographic that reaches all people, all price ranges, and it's a wonderful neighborhood with an elementary school that adds a sense of
great.
community.
Right.
In order for us to change from those really large lots to quite a few smaller ones, we had to give some things up as well. We had to donate several acres for a city park and several $100,000 to improve the park.
Oh, wow.
There was already a lot of open space in the area, but we then had to do that. And so now it has this beautiful park. And this took so many years because it was in the difficult times of the market that Layton City came and said, we want to contribute to the park and make it even better. So the equipment that is there, Trevor living there knows, it's incredible. Pickleball courts, tennis courts, the playground equipment, all the things that are there, tracks and things to.
Can I move to Harmony Place? Is anyone selling a house?
He just took my kids there yesterday. They love it. They love. My son goes to that school, and
So
my
great.
kids love the park. Yeah,
Love it.
it's
It's
beautiful.
incredible because it's a community. The most important thing, we talk about subdivisions and development and the technical words, but what we're trying to do is create community in our neighborhoods. We're trying to create an atmosphere where people really know their neighbors and love to be where they are. When you drive into Harmony Place with the open space and the trees and the entries and the roundabouts, it's an arrival. You feel like at least I feel I've arrived home. And so that's the reason I call it my favorite. I have lots of favorites, but that really is. I love the feeling at Harmony Place because it's not just us, other developers involved as well, but it's created community.
Isn't that great? Because we get into the nuts and bolts of building a home, but when we built a community, that's really fulfilling.
People
To
love
do that.
love to be in a community. You're
So
more
great.
confident. Your family's
That's-
happier. It matters.
Great discussion. Well, I think we're coming to the end. Trevor, if you want to fire off your
I've got
last question.
One last
to kinda
question.
close this
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, one last question that we ask everybody that comes on is, why should someone buy a Perry home?
I've been asked that many times over the years. I've even been asked, do you live in a Perry home? Yes, I've had 2 Perry homes. Of course I do. And I think to me, we're not going to be the highest, biggest numbers in permits. It's just not us. Like I wanted to push Bill in the beginning to do. It wasn't us. But I can confidently say that no matter whichever price range we talk about in our markets, whether it's townhomes or our series 1, 2, or 3, whichever home price range that we're building in, I believe we give the best value for the dollar that's out there in the market. We'll put in those ranges, we'll put nicer features in to compete well, to make it a home, not just an investment. A home is an investment, but to make it a home. And I can confidently say that we give an incredible value. And it's shown by the number of repeat buyers that we have. Repeat buyers, some 2, 3, 4 homes, family members of people who have purchased from us come and buy because we're not perfect. No builder is, but we try and make the process as simple and as flexible as it can be, but still give great quality and an incredible value so that people are enjoying their home 10 years down the road. That's why I think you should buy a Perry home. There's always a value, a strong value in the long run.
So great, Jeff.
Thank you.
This is so great. Hey, it's been a pleasure to have you. We Jeff and I, when I started, Jeff and I spent every hour of every day together. So
Lots of time.
We got to work shoulder to shoulder together, and I cherish those times. It's been a privilege to get to know you and to have you back, Jeff. You know how we feel about you at Perry Homes. It's such a tender and a respect, and I can't even think of the right emotions. But you have really, for 36 years, really helped shape the culture and the direction of this company. So we really owe a lot to you. So
Thank you. It's been great for me. I love Perry Homes and the team that is Perry Homes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Perry Homes podcast. It's Steve and Trevor signing off, I guess. Joe, I think I'm going to have you end it up. You could probably figure out a better way. I'll do the intro. You do the,
I'll do
the extro.
The outro.
The outro.
Thank you for listening to the Perry Homes podcast.